Were it not for the phone call from granddaughter Sabrina Watson, Chicago police might not have made this gruesome discovery on Monday. Her grandmother's body was found inside a freezer pulled from her Portage Park home, allegedly put there by Sabrina's mother, Eva Bratcher.
I feel like I'm just having another nightmare about some criminal case I saw on TV. Like, it's not really happening to me.
Bratcher made her first court appearance today. She's charged with concealing her 96-year-old mother's death, which happened back in March of 2021.
Approximately a week later, the defendant purchased a new storage freezer from Apt Electronics and placed her mother's body inside of it. A receipt for the purchase of the freezer was recovered from the scene.
Prosecutors say Bratcher moved the freezer to the garage and continued to collect rent from unsuspecting tenants who shared the 3-flat with her and her mom.
After her mother's death, the defendant told one of the residents of the building and another neighbor that her mother was in a nursing home.
My guess for a motive is money. She wanted the Social Security checks to not stop. And if you bury someone, the Social Security checks stop. That's how it works.
Although they hadn't been in contact for more than a decade, Sabrina remembers her grandmother fondly.
She was very polite, very kind to everybody, always welcoming, always inviting.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. As I said before, this story today is not just some random news story I found off the internet. This actually strikes right in the heart of my household. The woman who was charged with throwing her mother into a freezer is my mother-in-law, and I am not surprised, not one bit, by her actions. I met my wife when I was 17 years old and a junior in high school, and my wife and I, we basically formed this bond immediately. You know, me, I was more of a loner in my household. I didn't really spend a lot of time with my family. And my wife, you know, same thing. Her mom was a massive hoarder. And if you go on to, what is it, AMC, I believe, or, no, not AMC. What's the channel that Hoarders comes on? Not important, but A&E. It might be an A&E I'm thinking of. But if you watch any of those episodes, that's exactly what my mother-in-law was like. And I remember the first time my wife and I went out, her sister and I all went to go see a movie. And I went to her house to pick her up. And her mom ended up driving us to the movie theater. And you get inside the van, almost like jam-packed. I didn't really think of it as anything special at that time. I just thought it was kind of just a messy van. Again, unorganized, whatnot. It's kind of funny. When we got to the movie theater, there were people outside buying tickets and everything, and, they slide open the door, and suddenly everybody starts looking inside the van. My sister-in-law, she gets out. My wife gets out. Again, we were in high school. We were dating at the time. And before I could even get out, she immediately slams the door in my face. She said to this day, she still tells me that she forgot I was in there. But personally, I just think that she was embarrassed and didn't want all these people looking inside the dirty van and whatnot. So we're going to take a look at a few of these different news clips to kind of give you guys a little bit of knowledge of what transpired. And in between each of the clips, I'll talk for a few minutes, let you know some back history of my experiences with today's subject, Eva Bratcher. So here is another clip, and I'll be back in a moment to give you some more details.
We begin here at 10 with a breaking news update. A daughter is now charged with putting the body of her 96-year-old mother inside a freezer on the northwest side. CBS 2's Charlie DeMar live at the Layton Criminal Court building where the suspect is set to face a judge on these disturbing charges. Charlie?
And Joe, good evening. One thing we still don't know is the motive behind this. We expect to learn a lot more details in court tomorrow when Eva Bratcher makes her initial court appearance here at the Layton Criminal Courthouse. Tonight, Eva Bratcher is accused of the unthinkable, placing her mother's dead body inside a freezer. Police made the discovery in this Portage Park garage Monday night. Sabrina Watson is Bratcher's estranged daughter.
My mother has no love, not even for herself. No love for humanity, no love for anybody else.
Watson identified the 96-year-old as her grandmother, Regina Makowski.
What do you think the motivation
Money.
is? Money.
Money. It's always been money. She would steal my identity for money. She did it to my sister. She did it to my husband.
So you think that she was collecting her Social Security?
I know she was. That's why she didn't call the police.
Bratcher is also charged with having a fake ID card.
I hope they're following the money on this.
Robert Bratcher was married to Eva for more than 20 years.
What do you think the motive is?
Her mother, I'm sure, was drawing Social Security.
I'm glad that they have my mother in custody.
Now, authorities have not released how long the 96-year-old woman was inside that freezer. Again, that initial court hearing is tomorrow at the Layton Criminal Courthouse. We are live from the Layton Criminal Courthouse. Charlie DeMar, CBS 2 News.
Sounds like we'll learn more tomorrow, Charlie. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it's really sad and completely messed up. Here's the thing. Regina, I don't know, because she was very, I don't want to say homebound. She was more room bound. Like when I used to go over to Sabrina's house when we were in high school, come over to visit, whatnot. Her mom and her kids live separately. And I'm not saying that, Eva and her husband were divorced and the girls lived with their father. No, when I say live different in houses, my wife, again, girlfriend at the time, and her sister lived in a house, and next door, her grandmother owned the apartment building. So her mom and her grandmother lived in the second floor apartment, and there was no running water, or at least not any hot water in the house. The house was completely hoarded up. I'm talking, pizza boxes stacked up, dishes all over the table, floors, the inside the sink, rust, grime, dirt. Is just, the air quality was terrible. I think a lot of my breathing problems may have come from that. Probably not, but still, it smelled funky in there. And so whenever time I go to my wife's house, I'd go with her. They got these little spiral stairs that lead up to the second floor. We'd go into her room because, her room, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't no hoarded up, disgusting room. So, yeah, and of course, when I come over, I'd want to see her. I wouldn't want to be around her mom and whatnot because that's uncomfortable and weird. So, my wife, whenever she had to shower, she'd come next door into the apartment where her mom and grandma stayed to shower, or she'd have to come over there to go eat. Her mom completely hoarded up her mother's apartment as well. And when they were walking down like the stairs leading up to the first floor, second floor, third floor, walking up or down, there's all this junk all over the stairs. There's junk all in the basement areas, the laundry room area, just outside. Look at the photos. I'm going to end up putting in the stock photos, and look at the photos when they show the house itself, because you can see a bunch of junk scattered around there. That's exactly how she did to the other houses that she lived in. Back on what was it called? Was it Melrose or no, Cornelia Avenue? That's where they used to stay. And it was just terrible. So one day, I get home from, I kind of take a bunch of these really big, thick black garbage bags from my work, and I brought them over to my wife's house. I keep calling her my wife, but again, high school girlfriend. So, but you know what I mean. I'm like, what? I don't want you to live like this. You don't want to take the time to clean up. You're scared of your mom cleaning, of you cleaning up the house. You're worried about your mom bitching at you. I'll take the blame. I'll shoulder that for you. And I did a pretty damn good job. I mean, doing it by myself, like every morning, because I'd sleep over a lot, and every morning I'd load up my car with like 3 or 4 garbage bags and drive it down the street, throw it in like one of the back alleys into like one of the bigger garbage containers. Think about that. 3, 4, 5 bags at a time, 6 bags at a time. And I did that for weeks. And I cleared out that whole living room area for the most part. I even cleared out a base. We found another downstairs bedroom. We didn't even, like, my wife, I don't think she even knew that bedroom even existed. It was a nice big room. And of course, I laid claim to it. It wasn't my house, but you know what? I spent enough time at her house. I probably spent as much time at her house as I did my own. So, and one day I get a text message or a voicemail from my wife. And she tells me, she's concerned, scared, and she's like, "You listen to all your voicemails. My mom's pissed." And it's a bunch of voicemails from my mother-in-law. Again, she was just my girlfriend's mother at the time. I'm gonna stop clarifying that. Basically, telling me how she's gonna kill me and how pissed off she is that I've screwed up her home, and making all these threats about if she ever sees me again. I'm like, man, you're a 50-something-year-old woman. I'm like 17 at this time. I'm not worried about you. Absolutely insane, but that's the kind of mindset. Hoarding is a mental disease. I look around and I see some things in my house and here out of place or not put away. It drives me nuts. I couldn't imagine being that so bad off that you have that need to collect unnecessary and unsanitary items. And more to the point that you would leave your children in that type of environment. So yeah, when this came up, to say the least, no, it's not a surprise to me because you kind of expected something like this to happen at some point. But people are going to ask, well, where was the family? Where were the neighbors, etc.? My wife can't be held responsible for not being able to stay in contact with her grandmother. I mean, it's too hard. We lived in Texas for 13 years. We married in 2005, and she moved out to Texas to live with me because that's where I was stationed in the Army, Fort Hood. So, and then post Army, we bought a house in Killeen. So, from 2005 to 2013, no, 2005 until December 2017. So yeah, 13 years. We'll round it off, call it 2018. And then when we moved to Kentucky. Okay. Kentucky. You're still 5 hours away, 5.5 hours? You're not exactly in the same city that you can drive there every 20, 30 minutes and get there. So, and her being estranged from her grandma because her mom hated her guts and didn't want anything to do with her, disowned her, whatever. My wife was really at a standstill. She was stuck. But we're going to talk a little bit more about this in just a moment as I play one more clip for you guys. Up, here you go.
We had previously been reporting the elderly woman's age as 96, but as it turns out, that may not be true. In court today, prosecutors revealing that a calendar entry found inside the home she shared with her daughter indicates that Regina Michalski passed away nearly 2 years ago. 70-year-old Eva Bratcher faced a judge for the first time today, charged with concealing Regina Michalski's death nearly 2 years after it happened on March the 4th, 2021.
She admitted to police that after her mother died, she purchased a freezer approximately a week later and then placed her mother in the freezer.
Bratcher, who has served prison time twice for fraud, was also, according to prosecutors, found in possession of a fake ID using her mother's name. Her estranged daughter, Sabrina Watson, was taken to the ER in Kentucky today after being overcome by the anxiety of the last few days.
Urgent care transferred me to the ER when they said it's a heart problem, that the stress is affecting my heart.
And while it was only speculated at in court, Watson, who called in the well-being check that led to the horrific discovery at her grandmother's longtime Belmont Cragen 3 flat, says she believes her mother's motives in concealing the death were financial.
There's basically nothing my mother wouldn't do for money. And if that means putting a body in a freezer, she will put a body in a freezer. My mother would use my identity falsely. The last time she did it, she used my first name and my maiden name and said that I was unable to work because I was in Chicago taking home my sick grandmother.
An autopsy to determine Mikowski's cause of death has so far been delayed because of her frozen state. Watson telling us she wants her grandmother, a Polish immigrant who grew up during the Nazi occupation of her country, remembered for more than just the gruesome disposal of her remains.
She made these amazing Polish dishes that I will never taste again. And it's horrible that I didn't take the time to, learn her recipes.
In court, prosecutors disclosed that Eva Bratcher is a U.S. Army veteran. Records indicate that she retired in 1994 after just over 19 years of service. She is now being held on a $200,000 bond. At the Cook County Criminal Courthouse, I'm Michelle Gallardo, ABC 7.
So this last clip we just watched is particularly difficult, and it just frustrates me and makes me want to shout out the world. Kind of seeing the different internet trolls out there and idiots who just don't understand a simple concept. Well, what do I mean? I'll give you an example. I pulled up the YouTube video of this particular clip, and here's one comment that I just want to slap somebody for. So this person says, the granddaughter said that she is sad she won't eat her grandmother's food ever again, and that she didn't learn to cook like her. I thought she was going to say that she was sad that she didn't take the time to go visit and check on her grandmother. LOL. I'm like, that right there, like I said, are complete and absolute utter trolls, idiots. I responded, and so and all these people that are kind of agreeing and leaving similar comments, I'm like, you guys are complete freaking morons. One of the biggest and one of the best memories a lot of kids have from childhood is being in the kitchen and baking cookies with your grandmother, or making certain dinners or dishes with your mom or whatnot. When if your mom, you're 12 years old, your mom dies of cancer, those cooking tips and getting dirty in the kitchen, being covered in flour, those are fun memories. And being able to carry on the tradition, like my wife has a Polish background, so being able to carry on Polish recipes and dishes to pass down to younger generations, those traditions are important. Why is it important for men to have sons? To carry on the family name. It's why do men name their firstborn sons after themselves? It's just tradition. My wife kind of hates that. She kind of feels like it's unimaginative, but I'm like, no, it's not a lack of imagination. It's tradition. So you would think that would be so clear and obvious when watching this clip that that's what she meant when she wouldn't be able to eat her food anymore. And just kind of seeing those comments are idiotic. And why even post a comment like that when someone lost a relative? As I said, man, Regina, I don't think I ever called her Regina when I was young. I mean, up until recently, I've always called her Mrs. Mahowski. And it'd be funny because when we first met, obviously, I was in high school. I was probably like 130, 145 pounds, whatever. Years later, when I got out of the Army, 2010, and we came back to Chicago for a little bit, just before I got my first overseas contract and job working in Kuwait. And Regina, she walks into the kitchen. She looks at me like, oh, gain it wit. I can't do the accent right, but just that little smart ass remark. Oh, you gain it weight? I'm not talking about 200 pounds or anything. I probably was like 160, maybe 175 max, and I think even that's probably pushing it. But I'm like, yeah, when you get older, you put on weight. When you get married, especially, you're trying to stay fit and healthy, but at the same time, you're not really trying to impress anybody anymore. So yeah, I was obviously heavier then than I was in high school, but it was kind of funny that she make those little comments. She was such a small and an adorable thing. Um, yeah, I don't know how old she was when I was in high school. So you think 20 years ago, probably mid 70s or at least in her 70s. She had mobility problems, obviously, and I think that's why she spent a lot of time in her bedroom. That and her daughter, my mother-in-law was not allowed to go in there. Um, Eva already destroyed the family home. She destroyed her mom's apartment. She destroyed the outside of her mom's uh apartment building. So it's like, no. Regina was like, this is my room. You ain't touching this. I also kind of like the fact that I didn't even think about that until right now. Regina, Eva, Sabrina. I like that. That they all have that little A at the end, so that's nice. Samantha, my sister-in-law. So, keep that's nice. I like that. But when I heard about this particular event, I was at Granger, and I get a call from my wife, and she's basically hysterical. And I don't even know if she even told me what happened. Just that, or if she did, I don't really remember. But it's like I said, this is January 2023 when this happened, and I get this call, and I'm freaking nervous as heck. Like something major, like I don't know, like one of her babies died or something. One of the cats or something, or something that's hectic. And hearing that her grandma not just died, I mean, if she lived to be 90 something years old and had a nice full long life, that's one thing of natural causes. But if my wife's mom had anything to do with her death, my wife was telling me stories that um and it's not in any of these news clips, but so talk that her mom gave her like some kind of pill or whatnot, and watched her choke on it, did nothing to try and help her. I don't care what anybody else says, what the judges say or the lawyers. To me, that's murder. Her mom served about, what was it, 8 months, I think. I think she got out of jail last October. So she probably served about 18 months, maybe not 8 months. So about a year and a half, let's say, for stealing from the federal government, cashing your mom's Social Security checks, still collecting rent from from those who lived on the first floor and third floor. She was getting all that extra money. I don't know if she was still getting her military check. I would assume so. So she was really cashing it in. And now her apartment, I mean, her tenants were long moved out by now. Her apartment is going up for sale. She's gonna be homeless, and she's got no friends, no family. There's really nobody out there that trusts her, that couldn't possibly trust her. And this is a long time thieving and scheming woman. Uh, Everything from small stuff like putting my name on some of those like mail-ins to get like free cigarettes or 25% off cigarettes or some crap like that. Her mom was a smoker, so her Sabrina's grandmother was a smoker. That is Eva's mother. But my wife, when she went back to Chicago, she found these files that her mom had laying out on the table, and it had my name. It was a manila folder with a bunch of papers inside, and she was getting medication through Walgreens with my name on it, and she stole my identity essentially, and she was getting free. I don't know if she's getting free medication, but she was definitely getting a percentage off. And I think she and her sister might, or she and her youngest daughter might have actually been working that together. I don't know, man. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about this particular situation. So we are going to cut off here and move on to the next clip. And
Want to get to more breaking news this evening. Chicago police have now charged a woman after a body has been found in a freezer on Monday.
WGN's Alyssa Donovan has more from Portage Park. Alyssa.
Yeah, Ray and Micah, we just learned the charges that have been issued at this time. 69-year-old Eva Bratcher is facing 1 count of concealing or moving a body and 1 count of possessing a fraudulent ID card. Police say Bratcher moved and concealed the body of a 96-year-old woman at her residence here in the 5500 block of West Melrose Street in Portage Park. Today, we learned more about that woman who was found in the freezer and a little bit more about the granddaughter who called this into police.
I feel like I'm in a bad dream, like this isn't real.
Sabrina Watson says the woman who was found inside a freezer in a Portage Park garage earlier this week is her 96-year-old grandmother, Regina Michalski.
She was always very sweet to me. I remember growing up, she would visit us in Indiana sometimes.
Michalski moved to the United States from Poland after World War II. Most recently, she was living in the first floor unit of an apartment building in the 5500 block of West Melrose Street with Watson's mother, who owned the property, and to whom Watson is estranged. Watson believed her grandmother had passed away several years ago, but on Monday she had a gut feeling and decided to check the internet for her grandmother's obituary.
I couldn't find her any record of her being buried, no memorial online or anything like that. So I knew that her body was somewhere. It was somewhere, and it wasn't in the ground.
Watson, who lives in Kentucky, called Chicago police and asked them to do a wellness check, encouraging officers to speak with some of the tenants of the building.
We thought she was in a nursing, but I don't know.
The last time we saw her was around like 3 or 4 years ago, that she was actually here.
Chicago police found the deceased woman in the garage on Monday afternoon. Neighbors say the owner of the building was taken in by police shortly after. Watson says once the autopsy and the investigation is finished, she'll come to the city and give her grandmother the burial she deserves. And we did learn that Bratcher does have a previous criminal history as well. She pleaded guilty to forgery back in 2006. She has also been arrested for several other crimes. Reporting live in Portage Park, Alyssa Donovan, WGN News.
So my mother-in-law is a total jackass. I don't know why everybody gives her so much credit for being like this creative and sinister mastermind. And to me, that's just not it. Like, everybody has this fear of, well, I guess when you don't have a care in the world and you're narcissistic, and she is a narcissist 100%, and she is the definition of a narcissist, but we're going to go past that. Like, she would tell my wife that, I forget exactly how it goes, but essentially it's something like, you know what, if somebody steals $1 from me, I will pay $10,000 taking him to court just to get that $1 back, just to say that I won, type of deal. Moronic. So in some realities, yeah, could this woman pay a hitman to come assassinate one of her kids or relatives or something like that? Sure. But I don't think she's creative enough to find a logical hitman and not just some undercover police officer. So, you know, she's just a nasty woman, unclean, unkempt, who doesn't care about anybody but herself. And yet somehow you have all these followers doing what she wants. And how bad does a person got to be in their life to follow someone like this? You know, when it comes to her kids, they're stuck. You know, they're the children. They, this is their mom. They have to kind of follow the rules and guidelines, what have you. But there really was no rules in their household. And when I hear some things like, she was arrested for forgery, I'm like, that's not nothing different. She forges prescription medications. She steals notepads from doctor's offices at the VA or at the Navy hospital in Great Lakes, Illinois. So I'm like, shoot. And she's dumb. Like, She will literally go and brag to my wife. When we were in high school, she used to brag to my wife all of these things that she was doing or had done. Arson being one of them, forgery obviously being another, fraud. It's unbelievable. And you know what? Putting my mother in a freezer in order to keep collecting on her Social Security checks and another income, not a surprise in the world. And once again, in that last clip we just looked at, seeing the horde outside, I mean, you think that looks bad on the outside. Trust me, it could be, it could and has been a far worse. I think that maybe some of the tenants at the time actually cleaned up a little bit, because that actually looks better than what I would have expected. But inside the house, I've never been to her house since they moved from Cornelia, probably in the mid 2000s. Well, yes, I did. In 2010, I was there for a little bit, and she was nice enough to graciously gift me and her daughter a cell in the basement. Some little tiny room. Like, they had this big open basement apartment available. Nope. Just kind of stick us in this little tiny closet that my wife and I and like 5 cats had to stay in. I'm like, so I was super excited to get my first contracting job and get that income flowing so that we could have gone back to Killeen. And, because at that point, Texas was home. So just driving back on the Dan Ryan Expressway at 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday evening and seeing all 10 lanes of the highway, jam packed. I'm like, nah, forget this. Chicago just didn't feel like home anymore back in 2010 when we were there. So going back to Texas was, that was home. And now, being in Kentucky these last 7 years almost, well, we'll call it 6.5 years. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else at this point. So some of the conversations that have been going on is, she wasn't 96. Maybe she was like 92, 94. I don't think my wife even knows how old she is. I mean, hell, my entire life, I always thought my mom was born in 1952. I thought she was 33 when I was born in 85. And then in like 2010, obviously when I'm back in Chicago and I go over to my mom's house to visit her, and I just happened to glance at a piece of paper on the table that had her date of birth as April 5th, 1950. They got your birth year wrong. No, apparently I'm born in 1950. I'm like, what do you mean apparently you're born in 1950? How do you not know when you're born? Like, when did you graduate school? I'm like, when did you begin school? So even my mom doesn't even know how old she is, let alone the rest of us. So having relatives try to know what the grandparents' ages are, it's iffy. Not everything is digital like it is today, so it's not so easily located or identified. So, but guys, we're gonna take a look at one final clip. Basically the same thing we've already looked at, but a little bit of an update, I think, in this next video. And then we're going to call it a few more minutes of discussion, and we're going to call it a video. All right, guys, here is the final clip.
Let's start with Casey Cronus and disturbing new details about the case of a woman found.
Natalie and Corey, prosecutors say that 96-year-old woman has been dead for nearly 2 years and that her daughter kept her body in a freezer this entire time. 96-year-old Regina Mikulski was found dead earlier this week after her granddaughter called for a well-being check. Mikulski's daughter, who lived with her here in the 5500 block of Melrose Street, has been charged with concealing death and moving a body. 69-year-old Eva Bratcher appears appeared in court today. Prosecutors say inside her home, investigators recovered a calendar where the date and time of her mom's death was recorded as March 4th, 2021 at 2 p.m. Court documents state that about a week after her mom's death, Bratcher bought a freezer for the body and then moved it into the garage. Prosecutors say she told neighbors her mom was in a nursing home. One man who previously purchased property from Bratcher says the home was in deplorable condition when he acquired it and remembers Bratcher being arrested in the past.
I did. I felt because of the dealings I had with her previously, I felt that it was up to me to come here and let them know to be very careful because she's a very dangerous lady. And I don't want nothing to happen to them. I wouldn't be able to sleep if something happens to them. Knowing that I know what I know about her, I wanted both tenants to know that they have to watch themselves and be careful.
Bratcher has previously been charged with felony forgery and domestic battery, among other charges. Her bail has been posted at $200,000. She needs to pay $20,000 to be released from jail. In the meantime, her mother's autopsy is still pending. Reporting live in Portage Park, Casey Cronus, Fox 32, Chicago.
Do you know how deplorable it is when a relative does something so heinous to another relative in the way that Ava did to Regina, and to get nothing more than a $20,000 bail? I mean, this court system or justice system is just beyond ludicrous. And like I said, I don't think anybody really knows but Eva herself if she actually did the deed and actually murdered her. Did the wife believe she did? Probably not. The fact that she didn't do anything, that she let her mother, she left her own flesh and blood, okay, sit and rot in a bed for over a week before, hey, you know what? It's starting to smell in here. Let me go buy a freezer to stuff her in. I could not freaking imagine doing that. I mean, I kind of joke with my wife that, I would stuff her body kind of like you would do to an animal, but, to keep her around. But there's one thing be joking around when someone passes away naturally and someone doing that just for illegal purposes. Some people that watch this video, they might ask me, this is my mother-in-law. She may not be blood, but she's family. Isn't it my duties to support her? Well, I would counter and be like, well, isn't it not also my duties to support my grandmother-in-law? Also taking to great detail that I've talked about earlier about how she, threatened to kill me, ticked off that I cleaned up the house, which was in deplorable condition. And I didn't want my girlfriend at the time, of course, who is my wife, I didn't want her to be living in those conditions. I wanted her to come to a nice, clean home that she could be proud of, that, she wanted to bring friends over, she could, and not be humiliated by what she had to live in, what she was forced to live in. My wife is a very clean person, and I don't know how she didn't get major OCD and just want to scrub every inch of that building or that house down. But clean as in physically clean, not necessarily clean the house clean. Another thing, I don't think I'll ever have any respect for Eva. What she did to my wife, psychologically throughout her life, again, I use the word deplorable. It fits. I mean, when you're 11 years old, 9 years old even, and your mother's calling you a slut and a whore and a stupid bitch and things like that, or while she's living in her air-conditioned apartment or heated apartment during the winter time, and your daughters are next door, they're small kids. I think like Sabrina would have been like 9, her sister maybe 7 or so, for example. And, Sabrina's up having to make breakfast for her, wake up her sister, make breakfast, possibly get her dressed and ready for school, make her lunch. My wife was basically a mother to her sister from a very young age. And of course, the baby of the family. The baby of the family is usually going to be the the one that the parents love the most. But there was a difference between having a favorite when you really shouldn't, and loving one and just absolutely hating the other. Maybe Eva realized that her oldest daughter was better than her, and that made her angry. I don't know, but the mental anguish that she put my wife through, continued when we were dating. It continued even into the time that we were married, and thousands of miles away. And that's, to me, I think that speaks volumes of what kind of monster this woman was. Like I said, she had military retirement checks. She had, as next of kin, she would the apartment would have gone to her anyways, especially since she lived there. I'm pretty sure she probably co-signed. I don't know. There was no purpose other than trying to steal her Social Security. Like, how much Social Security could she have possibly gotten? $700 a month, maybe. I'm guessing. Hell, $700 a month doesn't even buy action figures for me. You guys see my collection, so it's pretty substantial. But this event, I really wanted to talk about this last year when it happened, but like I said, this is my wife's story to tell. When the different interviewers, reporters called up and wanted to interview her, that was her right to either decline or accept the invitation for an interview. Because it was my wife's personal information, I felt like it wasn't my right or my story to tell. But I think enough time has passed. Since then, again, her mom's been out of jail since like October. So she's been out for what, 7 months now? 6.5 months. It's crazy. She's been out almost as long as she was in jail. And this happened January. Well, it happened in January 2023. So in roughly 16 months, I thought her mom served 18 months, but that's not even the case. That's not even close. So it really was, probably about 6 months or something in jail. Somewhere between 4 to 8 months. I don't know the full details. Irrelevant. She didn't spend much time in. So, guys, that is going to be the last that I'm discussing for this video. Maybe I'll do a follow-up if there's interest for me to dive further into my relationship and, history. But I think for now, this is a sufficient video for what I want to create. As always, guys, if you have questions, if you have different points of view, things like that, obviously, feel free to leave in the comments. I mean, I always try to respond to everybody, as quickly as I can. Other than that, guys, as always, thank you so much for your support and watching my videos and your subscriptions, your comments. As always, it means the world to me. So thank you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.